Ice Rink Cave Incident. On May 25, 2003, in the forested volcanic fields of southern Washington state, Chris Molino set out with his wife Lena and their children, Adam and Maya, for what he believed would be a short, casual afternoon cave exploration. Chris was an experienced caver, familiar with the lava tube systems common in that region. His plan was to first scout 100 to 200 feet inside alone, confirm that the passage was open and safe, and then return to lead his family in slowly. Chris wore a helmet-mounted headlamp, gloves, knee pads, and carried a small backpack containing water and a printed map he had reviewed the night before. The entrance was a shallow sinkhole, loose soil sloping into dark volcanic stone. Sunlight, warm and golden, stayed behind as he descended, leaving the mouth of the cave a soft, shrinking glow. Inside, the temperature cooled sharply. Basalt walls absorbed sound, producing a deep silence, sharp and fractured in others. The ceiling lowered quickly. Chris crouched, then crawled forward on hands and knees. He recognized the indicators of a lava tube: smooth, scalloped walls, and long tubular corridors. But the shape of this passage differed from what he expected. Instead of widening into a known main hall, the tube narrowed before opening into a different chamber. He pressed on, calm and methodical. He saw a cluster of fallen rocks, a small collapse that forced him to shift sideways and squeeze through. It was a tight gap, but navigable. Beyond it, the corridor opened again into a wider tunnel. Chris believed he was on the correct route. After several minutes, he decided he had scouted far enough. He turned to return, expecting to follow the same simple route back. This is where everything changed. Chris moved confidently at first, retracing what he remembered. But after a few turns, he stopped. The rocks around him matched where he believed he had come. Yet the angle of the floor felt wrong. He tried another direction, certain that the entrance lay just beyond the next bend, but he came to the same rockfall again. He tried left, then right, then a wider loop. Every path brought him back to the rockfall. At first, he dismissed it as a simple navigation error. But the cave twisted subtly, creating repeating patterns of volcanic stone that looked nearly identical. Time began to distort. Minutes became an hour. He marked the walls with dust streaks and floor scuffs, but soon he found scuff marks that no longer made sense. He began to question what he had or had not already done. Panic grew slowly at the edges of his mind. His breathing became louder, harsher. He forced himself to slow down, to think clearly. The cave was indifferent and silent. His headlamp began to dim. That was when fear became urgent. He knew once his light failed, his chance of escape would collapse entirely. He dropped lower to the floor, waving the remaining light along crevices and shadows. The cave looked different from below, from a crawl position instead of a crouch. And that was when he saw it, a thin, shadowed space near the floor, half blocked by rubble, just inches high. A path he had crawled past multiple times without noticing. He lay flat on the rock and pushed forward, scraping his helmet, shoulders, and ribs. The passage was tight, but it continued. Slowly, painfully, he hauled himself through until the tube widened again. There, faint and distant, the entrance slope glowed with pale daylight. He emerged 5 hours after entering, shaking, dehydrated, and silent. His family had waited the entire time at the entrance, unaware of how close they had come to losing him. Chris survived, but the cave had shown him how easily a familiar environment can turn disorienting, narrowing perception until even a skilled explorer becomes lost in looping dark. Keyhole Cave Incident. On July 18, 1998, Craig Douglas, his younger sister Jessica Douglas, and two close friends Buster Hale and Jennifer Rowe entered Keyhole Cave C, a narrow limestone cave system in the American Midwest. The group was prepared with helmets, elbow and knee pads, headlamps, backup lights, drinking water, and a short rescue rope adequate for typical conditions in this cave. The entrance was little more than a crack, descending into cool, damp darkness. Inside, the cave air was heavy and still, holding the mineral scent of wet stone. Light faded quickly as they moved forward in single file. The passage narrowed to a belly crawl within the first 10 minutes. The stone floor and ceiling scraped against their clothing as they inched their way downward, elbows pressing forward, boots dragging behind. Their voices echoed in short, muted bursts. They progressed through several tight bends and sloping passages before reaching a feature known among local cavers as Paul's Pipe, a 1-foot-high corridor that extended forward before dropping 8 feet into the next chamber. It required absolute commitment. Once inside the crawl, turning around became nearly impossible. Craig chose to go first, confident in his ability to assess the descent and guide the others. He exhaled deeply, flattening himself to the stone, and pushed forward with slow, deliberate motions. The limestone pressed against his shoulders. Dust gathered in his hair. His breaths became steady and rhythmic. He moved carefully, knowing space was limited near the drop ahead. Then, in one subtle shift of motion, everything changed. As Craig angled downward toward the exit of the crawl, his left foot slipped into a narrow gap between 2 jagged rocks. When he attempted to adjust and pull free, his right knee slid into a narrow pocket of stone and locked. The rock pinched tightly, holding him in a downward-leaning position. Chest angled toward the 8-foot drop just inches ahead. Jessica and Buster worked to free him, attempting to reposition his legs 1 inch at a time. Realizing they could not free him alone, Jennifer turned back, crawling out of the cave to call for help. The journey back to the surface was slow and suffocatingly narrow. Meanwhile, Jessica stayed with Craig, speaking calmly to keep him alert. Hours passed. The air grew colder. Craig's body began to shake. Rescue teams arrived and worked methodically. They tried applying lubrication. Altering angles, exerting controlled force, nothing worked. Craig's knee continued to swell, reducing circulation. Hypothermia crept in. More time passed. 30 hours underground. With no other option, rescuers began chiseling the limestone surrounding Craig's knee. His knee came free, but escape was not over. The exit required 8 more hours of crawling, towing, and guiding him back through the same constricting tunnels. After 43 hours underground, Craig emerged into daylight and was rushed directly to surgery. He survived,